Have you ever stopped to think about the connection between the apps you scroll through every day and the very code that's going to shape our future? It might seem like a stretch, but today, we're going to connect those exact dots. We'll explore how faith is changing in the digital age and how we might just be able to teach artificial intelligence to be fair. Okay, let's jump right in. I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But we are so much closer than you think. The very same algorithms that recommend your next video or your favorite song are already fundamentally changing how we connect with spirituality. And honestly, it's creating a world with incredible new opportunities, but also some pretty serious dangers. So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with this new landscape of digital faith. Then we'll look at the good and the bad, the opportunities and the dangers. That'll lead us right to the problem of hidden biases in the code itself. And from there, we'll get into a pretty mind-blowing solution, an AI constitution, and the clever method behind it called fairness by speculation. All right, so our journey starts somewhere we all know well, social media. The way people, and especially younger generations, are engaging with faith, it's just completely shifted away from physical buildings and straight onto our screens. I mean, just think about it. Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they're not just for dance videos and memes anymore. They have become, for all intents and purposes, digital pulpits, virtual classrooms. For millennials and Gen Z, this is the main hub where religious ideas are found and shared. It's all way more visual, interactive, and bite-sized. And believe me, this is having a huge impact on everything from personal identity to how entire communities practice their beliefs. But, like pretty much everything on the internet, this new digital faith has two very different sides. It's an unbelievably powerful tool for good, but it also carries some major risks. On the bright side, these platforms are amazing for getting spiritual messages out to a global audience and for building these incredible virtual communities that just ignore geography. They can even help people build more moderate, more inclusive identities. But then, there's the dark side. The very same algorithm that connects us can also trap us in polarizing echo chambers. It can spread misinformation like wildfire and can even push people towards more and more extreme views. And this brings us to a much, much deeper question. So far, we've talked about the content that we, the users, create and share. But what happens when the content is actually being generated by an AI? What if the machine itself is prejudiced? So this is our pivot point, where we go from the digital pulpit to the actual code. You see, these large language models, LLMs for short, they learn by basically inhaling just an unbelievable amount of text from the internet. And when they do that, they don't just learn about language and grammar, they also learn all of society's deepest and, yeah, often its ugliest biases. Okay, look at this slide, because it makes that hidden bias totally visible. Researchers gave an AI a fill-in-the-blank sentence. When the clue word was discriminated, the AI filled in the blank with Dalit, a historically marginalized caste in India. But when the clue word was privileged, it chose Brahmin, a historically dominant caste. This isn't the AI thinking. It's just reflecting, it's parroting back the deeply ingrained societal stereotypes it learned from all that data it consumed. And that is the real danger. The AI isn't just a mirror reflecting our biases. It's a magnifying glass. It creates this dangerous feedback loop where our worst stereotypes get laundered through this supposedly neutral machine and then served back to us as if they're objective facts. So the really critical question becomes, how on earth do you fix a problem that's woven into the very fabric of the AI? Well, a team of researchers came up with a solution that is both radical and, honestly, really elegant. They created a framework they named Ambedkar, after Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the main architect of the Indian Constitution and a tireless champion for equality. The Ambedkar framework is a completely new way of thinking about this problem. See, instead of trying to do the impossible, like cleaning up trillions of web pages or spending a fortune to retrain a giant AI model, it steps in at the very last second. It works in real time, right as the AI is generating an answer, and it basically forces the AI to check its work against the principles of a constitution. And this quote from Dr. Ambedkar himself just perfectly sums up the whole philosophy. He says, "Equality may be a fiction, but nonetheless, one must accept it as a governing principle." In other words, even if the world isn't perfectly equal, we have to build our systems, and that includes our AI systems, as if equality is a non-negotiable rule. So how does it actually work? Well, it's a super clever 5-step process they call fairness by speculation. First, a small, quick AI model proposes a bunch of different ways to finish a sentence, biases and all. Second, the system challenges those ideas by creating a what-if scenario, basically the opposite situation. So if the original prompt said discriminated, the challenge prompt would say privileged. Third, a bigger, wiser AI, one that's been trained on constitutional principles, steps in to verify everything. It looks at all the options and asks, which one of these holds up the best? Which one changes the least, even when we flip the script? It's searching for the most neutral and consistent answer. It scores all the options, and finally, it selects the single fairest text as the final output. It's brilliant. It's an amazing idea in theory, right? A kind of constitutional check and balance system for AI. But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Does it really reduce bias in the real world? And the answer is a huge, resounding yes. In their tests, the framework led to a 26.41% absolute reduction in religious bias. That is a massive improvement. And remember, it was achieved without having to retrain the model from scratch. Just this clever, real-time check. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. You can see the level of bias in the standard baseline model, and then look at that dramatic drop when the Ambedkar framework is turned on. It's just a crystal clear picture of how powerful this approach is. And the advantages here are huge. Because this method works on the AI's output, it doesn't care what model you're using. It could even work with those proprietary black box models from the big tech companies. It's also incredibly efficient, adding just a tiny bit of processing time, about 6%. And maybe the most important part, this isn't just some random statistical trick. Its decisions are grounded in actual, established legal and ethical principles. Now, it's true this framework is currently tailored specifically to the Indian Constitution and its social context. But the real breakthrough here is the design itself. This is a blueprint. You could use the same idea to create similar frameworks based on any country's legal system or any set of ethical rules from anywhere in the world. And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. We started this journey with faith moving online, and we ended up with an AI that can be taught to follow a constitution. So, if we can successfully teach a machine the principles of legal equality, what else should we be teaching it? What other human values, what other ethical frameworks, what guiding principles should we be embedding into the very code that is going to increasingly run our world? Something to chew on. Thanks for watching.